All right, no time to explain, gang. Welcome back, King Zeph here, back with another video for you guys. Happy Wednesday. Sorry for the wait. I had a very productive, well, not really productive, super busy couple weeks. The YCS Indianapolis was 2 weekends ago, so I was down and participating in that. And then this past weekend was actually the Lorcana Challenge in Chicago that I participated in. So I've been kind of all over the place between work, preparing for both of those events, playing, and all that other fun stuff. So sorry for the delay on some videos. Some more things will be coming because we'll be having some more discussions about a couple other things coming down the pipeline. And I promise there's going to be some my OCG openings that I've kind of been procrastinating forever. Those videos are coming. They'll probably be here sometime next week. This week is going to be more Lorcana based because I believe a Lorecast is tomorrow or today. Is it later today? It might be later today or sometime this week. I can't remember the exact dates. And then also Summer Game Fest was last weekend too. So there's a lot of stuff has been going on this week. But anyway, I actually wanted to just hop on the video, and especially for some educational purposes for those that are going to be attending the Lorcana Challenge in Fort Worth in Texas or planning to do any future ones. Just want to talk about my experience, some of my thoughts, and hopefully Ravensburger catches a win of this video because they are taking a lot of criticism and they are making some tweaks to how the challenges work because they did make some changes to Chicago, which I'll bring that up. And so I just want to kind of walk you guys through a couple of things to see how my experience was, what to look out for if you're going to participate in a challenge, whether you're an attendee or a competitor, and just a couple of things that I hope Ravensburger does fix in the future, possibly within the next couple of challenges or down the road. Basically, essentially, I don't know why I just lost my train of thought that fast. I'm tired. Sorry, guys. This is, that's pretty usual for videos like me. I'm always tired. But so this past weekend, what was it? Friday was the early check-in, and then of course the event was Saturday and Sunday. I participated in it. I didn't top. I figured that might or might not happen. I actually had a pretty decent odds of topping, but it comes to the really concerns of how the tournament structure is located. So before I get into all how the tournament and everything goes on that side, just going to break down the kind of the check-in process. So if you did purchase a ticket, whether you're an attendee or a competitor, of course they did have the early check-ins Friday, so they had it from like 5 o'clock to like 8 o'clock or something like that. Basically, walk up to the desk, give them your ID, and then they give you the badge according to whichever type of ticket you have. So I had a competitor badge, so this was my badge. Basically, it's just a standard Lorcana Challenge Chicago 2024 with competitor at the bottom in purple. If you were attendee, it would say attendee at the bottom in red. So basically, those people that just wanted to hang out and attend and play the side events, you got a similar looking badge. It just had the attendee label on it. And then, of course, I did receive a league promo, which was Flat Sim and Jet Sim. So I actually got one of those for checking in early. And then, of course, last but not least, I did get the Dragonfire promo. So basically the alternate art Dragonfire that is specific for the challenge. You get this once you participate in the main event and play 3 rounds. So basically it was a way to deter a lot of scalpers, people that's trying to hop in, say they participated and just given the card to check in. You actually have to play 3 rounds in the main event to get this. And then, of course, a bunch of people dropped out because they just wanted the card or they just didn't care anymore. But the biggest thing about it is going to be with the pricing and everything in between, because so outside of the top prizes, so of course, anybody in the top 64 or got the same or tied scores with the top 64 players got the Let It Go promo. The people that made it to the top 32, was it 32? Yeah, top 32, you got the Cinderella promo, which you could also get in a non-foil variant by exchanging your tickets that you get from playing the main event and the side event, which was one of the changes that they made. To entice people to stay in the main event, they actually rewarded you tickets based upon your points you earned in the main event. So I believe you got it at 10, 20, and 30. Once you got 10 points, you got 6 tickets. Once you got 20 points, you got 14 tickets. And then when you got to 30, you got 20 tickets. I'll get in a little bit more detail about that in a hot second. Then, of course, once you hit the top 16, you got the Rapunzel. Top 8 got the special edition Rapunzel playmat. And then, of course, the top 4 got the serialized Mickeys, the golden Brave Little Tailor Mickey Mouses. So the top 4 players got that. And then, of course, they got booster boxes. The first place winner, I believe, got a trophy and then a complete binder with every foil set in Ursula's Revenge, I think it was. It might have been Into the Inklings. It said whatever legal set it was. In Atlanta, it was Into the Inklings. So the legal set this time in Chicago was actually Ursula's Revenge. So that person probably got all of Ursula's, including the Enchanted. So, of course, the first place winner gets a lot. They got booster boxes, they got all the prizing promos, and they got everything in between. So, you just walked out with a lot of valuable stuff. And then, of course, for those that didn't want to participate in the main event, or for those that got knocked out of the main event for day one, they did have the side events. And this is one of the things, my gripes that I have with both Yu-Gi-Oh! As well as Lorcana, is that side events are fun and they give you an opportunity to play different formats and different types of games. And it does welcome people to come and play the side events. And I have zero problems with that. My big concern with how the side events are kind of done is kind of how it's structured and organized, and this is one of the big things that I also ran into at the challenge. Sorry, my phone is deciding to just go off and trying to cut it off from beeping all over the place. But the way the prizing system works, you basically earn tickets for participating and winning in your side events as well as in the main event, because you didn't win tickets in the main event previously. So they added that for Chicago. And essentially you needed 20 tickets to get the non-foil Rapunzel, and you needed 18 tickets to get the non-foil Cinderella. And then they had a bunch of other things. They had like booster packs, I think the Luminous Quest, some play mats. They had a special edition play mat that you could get from trading in tickets, but you needed 80 of them, which was kind of wild. But essentially the way the prizing wall kind of worked out and structure is that if you essentially didn't do only the side events, or you didn't have a team with you to collect tickets, it made it almost virtually impossible for you to really win anything off the ticketing wall. And this is one of the issues I have with Yu-Gi-Oh! And I have the same issue with Lorcana now. The side events are fun and they have a good diversity, but the problem with the side events is that they make you choose between playing the main event and the side events. And Yu-Gi-Oh! is a little bit more enticing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because in Yu-Gi-Oh! at a YCS, if you basically take 3 losses immediately, you're not topping. So you're better off just dropping and doing the side events at that point in time, because your wins, especially when it comes to the points you need to even potentially hit the top to get to the next day, is so skewed, and your wins more or less so Yu-Gi-Oh! Than Lorcana, because the game structure is a little bit different, and I'll go over that in a hot second as well. But essentially what ends up happening is like, if you lose 3 straight games, which basically the first 3 rounds, or even really lose the first 2 rounds so much for sake, you're pretty much not going to top, and you're better off just doing the side events at that point in time. So you essentially pay for the main event. You don't do well early, and then you can drop out and go straight into the side events. And the issue I always had with the side events is that some side events they do where they basically just keep doing them in rotations and rounds. So like every couple of minutes, another round is going on, whether it's the Win-A-Mat or certain other things, but certain things that would give you like prizing for tickets, earning the giant cards, and a bunch of other things. They only have maybe 1 or 2 of those events scheduled, one for each day, and it's at a set period of time. So if you want to potentially try to win something, you really have to make that ultimate decision whether you want to stay and try to compete, because especially if you're doing well in the main events, it makes it very hard for you to go like, well, I don't know if I'm going to top, so I could try to do something and take something home with me or not. And that's really one of the harder things about it. I believe the side events really should be more so focused on the second day as opposed to the first day and the second day, or at least have double the prizing, or not have all the prize, because sometimes the prizing is already exhausted by day 2. But I believe that they probably should do the most amount of things on the side events on the second day, which will give players that want to participate in the main events, it gives them an opportunity to actually play the main event all the way through and see if they'll make it or not. And then those players that don't make it, if you want to stick around and come back and potentially try to win something else and do the side events, then go ahead and sign in and do the side events. But having most of the bulk of the side events happening at the same time as the main event kind of puts you at a huge disadvantage to potentially walk away with something potentially, or even just test your luck and play some other games and some other formats in that situation. So I've never been a big fan of that. I love the idea of side events and playing other formats and playing different styles. But as a person that likes to play the main event too, and potentially would have a shot and maybe topping and potentially going on forward and trying to win and playing at the high level and competitive level, is one of those things where I don't want to sign up for the main event just to turn around and be like, all right, I'm just going to drop and then do it that way, because it feels really crushing and defeating at that point in time. So I feel better that if personally, and this is my opinion, and if you guys have the same opinion, please leave it a like and please let me know in the comment section. But I think they should do really the big bulk of the side events, and really focus so much on that second day, because at the end of the first day, so many players are going to get knocked out from not qualifying for the second day and not topping, that at least it gives them the opportunity to really kind of do something else while they see potentially who wins the tournament. But it also, I feel like, would help the vendors and help the tournament as well, because you're going to be then having a lot larger pool of players that will go and say, you know what, I want to play some more, and maybe I can win a giant card, or maybe I can win some packs or whatever. Then they'll sign up for the side events, which will increase your player pool, which also will increase your revenue, realistically speaking. And Lorcana was the same way. Lorcana did a bulk of the side events on day one. They didn't do that many on day two, and the ones that were available on day two, because everything sold out so quickly, because they just had a locked player count, because people kind of just signed in. I guess people signed up for the side events for day two a lot earlier. I guess they just knew they weren't going to top, so they kind of just did that on the fly as it was. But by the time I got to day two, the only two things I was allowed to do was to draft or play the starter decks. And I tried my hand at draft. I'm not a big fan of drafting, because I draft poorly. I just suck at drafting. I'm not going to lie. But, you know, kind of passing packs around and building a deck out of what you get. You know, it can be fun, and it's a nice little challenge. But at the same time, it's just like when you kind of been practicing and working with a deck for so long, understanding metas and all that other stuff, to me, to be forced into that isn't really ideal. And then, of course, the next one was like a tournament based on the starter decks. And if you haven't seen the previous videos I did in Pixelborn, I did test out the starter decks in Pixelborn to see how decent they were. And against each other in the starter deck format, it works, but it doesn't work so much in a regular format. Personally, I was only a fan of one of the two starter decks, which was the Madrigal deck. I believe it was Amethyst Amber. It was Amber Amethyst was the colors for that deck. That was the deck that I believe was probably the best one of the group, that worked the best, and it gave you some more options out of it. But I didn't play that event because, one, I just didn't feel like spending the money on it, and two, I didn't know which deck I was going to get. I didn't know if they're going to let you pick which deck, or they just basically cracked open a case of starter decks and they just handed them out, and what you got is what you got. They did have constructed and sealed, so that way you could play your constructed format against other players. But like I said, those events filled out, as well as some of them were overbooked in Melee GG. I kind of wish that something Ravensburger tip for that one. Clarify that and fix that, because I saw a lot of the events were overbooked past 128 players, and it made it confusing, as if you could sign up for the event, but of course in Melee it said, hey, you hit the player cap, but the player cap was exceeded. So I don't know if it was just an error, or were they judges or whatever, or even potentially just raising the player cap in the future. But hopefully that doesn't happen again or anymore on that side, because that made that very confusing and kind of heartbreaking, because it's like, oh, I want to play constructed and do the side event. But the player count was technically at its limit and technically over the limit on that side. But going back to the ticketing system, this is where the other part of that kind of came into play. So basically, this was the ticketing system. You basically earn so many tickets for participating in the events, and it also shows how much each event costs to participate in. My biggest gripe with this is because all the actual normal ticketed events were already filled, and you were only stuck with just the rotating draft and the rotating starter deck, is that you only had those two options that you could play with. But then on top of that, in terms of how much things cost and how many tickets you earned, was severely slewed. I feel like personally that the participation tickets should have been the same across the board. You should have got the exact same amount of tickets for participating, whether it was in the constructed CO, constructed deck tiers, or the starter deck and the draft. Basically cutting it down to only getting one participation ticket for the other event compared to the four, and spending definitely more money on those events was much of a letdown. I can understand that the pricing at the very end, so if you top or get second or third place and all that other stuff, be a little bit lower. You could have cut those values in half. But it goes into that whole thing of like, okay, I wanted to play constructed, but I can't because it's filled. So the only thing I'm left with is this. But even though constructed cost me $10, now I have to pay $35 to play draft, and I'm not even going to get nowhere near the number of tickets I would have gotten just from participating in any of the other events. So it kind of points you in a little. It gave a bad taste in my mouth personally, because I feel like in that situation, you're only giving me these two events. I have to pay for these events. These events cost drastically more than the other events that I wanted to participate in but couldn't, and I'm getting less for them. So I don't believe that that was really a good thing on that side. I hope that for the next couple of challenges in the future, they modify those ticket values and adjust them. At least give you the same number of participation tickets at the absolute least. That way it's balanced across the board. So it's like, hey, you're playing a side event, you're going to get 4 tickets. Because the problem that lied at the end of the day is in order for you to really take anything from the prizes, you had to have a team. There's no way. The only way you were going to get 80 tickets to potentially get the exclusive playmat is if you only did the side events. So you basically got a competitor's badge. Well, I wouldn't even get a competitor's badge at that point in time because you're just kind of throwing money away. You would have got an attendee's badge, and then you signed up for every single side event that you could have within those time slots and then won all of them. That was really the only way you were going to be able to get the 80 tickets necessary. Or you came with a group of people where you all just did side events, and then of course you put the tickets in a pot. You bought tickets from other people, you got tickets from other individuals, and all that other stuff. And that part is okay, but it also devalued the main event too, because the big problem with the main event and the ticketing system is that it didn't stack. So basically, once you hit your 10 points, you got 6 tickets. If you got 20 points, you got 14 tickets. It wasn't 6 and then 14 more. It was 6 or 14. So once you hit the 14, you only got 14 tickets. The 6 went away. And then once you got to the 20, it was 20 tickets, where if it was stacked, so that way if you got 30 points, you would have earned 6 tickets, 14 tickets, and then 20 tickets. That would have been 40 tickets you would have earned for participating from the main event from top to bottom and getting 30 points. That would have been a lot more enticing, especially because, like, fortunately, a lot more people played the main event in Chicago because of that addition to it. But I feel like if you're going to earn those points at that point in time and play those rounds to that extent, that they should have stacked. So if you got 20 points, between 20 and 30 points, you actually walked away with 20 tickets instead of just 14. Because really the only thing you could get with 14 tickets was this very t-shirt that I'm wearing, which also, side note, Ravensburger, there were 4, because there was a villainous cap, 2 different Lorcana caps, and then this Lorcana Challenge t-shirt, which thank you for giving us Lorcana branded gear in terms of clothing and accessories. There was no reason this should have been 14 tickets. I feel like this should have been something you could have just went up and bought, paid $20-$30 for a t-shirt and walked away with it, whether it's on the website or at the event, or even gave t-shirts away for those that early registered for the events. That would have been a nice touch as well. Because one of the big things that, of course, when everybody's going for the events, everybody's getting things that were of value. So everybody's targeting the playmat, the non-foil promos for the event, and probably like extra things like the Trolls and Lumineers quests and stuff that they probably couldn't easily find in their stores or their locals. So like this was nice, and I love this shirt. The shirt is very nice quality, it's very, very soft, and don't mean to be touching all over myself and make emphasis, but I feel like a lot of this stuff would have moved, especially with the caps and the t-shirts, if they had simply just put it for sale. If you simply just sat back and said, hey, stop at the booth, it's $20 for a t-shirt, or whatever, $20, $30, however way you wanted to pitch it, these would have been flying off the shelves, which would have been understandable because we also want branded gear. We want stuff like licensed gear to be able to wear to such events or walk around to our locals and all that other stuff. So this was a great touch, and this is a very great t-shirt that I'm glad they made these, but I don't feel like this should have been something that you win from the tickets. It should have been something that you just been able to walk up and buy and just call it a day. Or if you did want to have it for tickets, make it the ticket count low enough to where people just want to just take them, but like give people the option to buy them as well as just use the tickets for them. Either or, that would have worked out better in my personal opinion. But outside of those couple things, like they had the space day 2 to have a lot more side events. I think there were only 2 rounds of constructed and 2 rounds of sealed scheduled on Sunday, as opposed to like 4 or 6. They should have probably had a lot more going on those days and everything else in between. So that'd have probably been a little better. But if they would have kept Saturday's schedule on Sunday in terms of side events, I feel like it probably been a lot better on that side. So hopefully they make those changes in the near future. But also my last thing in terms of the main event, and I completely forgot about this because I just went on the deep, dark rant of the ticket system. And like I said, if you guys experience this or have your thoughts, make sure you leave them in the comments and tell me what you think about those things. Main event. So I did play in the main event. I only really truly lost one game. So it was 9 rounds of Swiss because there was 1,004 players. I think it was 20 people didn't come and register out of the 1,024. I played mostly against Ruby Amethyst and Ruby Sapphire. There were 2 games I played that were Emerald Steel. One game was Amethyst Steel, and then everything else was either Ruby Amethyst or Ruby Sapphire. Out of those 9 rounds, I lost 1, I won 1, and then I drew the remaining 7. But main event for the first day was best of 2. Now, the best of 2 format, it's nice because the way it worked was if you won a round, you got 3 points. If you won both rounds, so you 2-0'd, you got 7 points, and then your opponent got 0 points. And if you tied, then both players got 3 points. So the nice part about it is that the way the points kind of were distributed based upon how you did in each game, it didn't make you feel like you were like at a detriment or really losing. So if you basically won 1 and drew, both players got 3 points. You really didn't lose. So you still earn points. So that way it's not like you feel like you're going to get knocked out of the tournament or knocked out of topping. That part is nice. The problem was in order to top, you pretty much had to for 5 games go 2-0. Or at least 6. Like if you did 6 games at 2-0 and then drew the rest, you were guaranteed a top slot. You were guaranteed a top slot because 6 would have put you at what was it? 42 points. And then with the remaining 3 games, that would have been 9. So that would have put you at 51 points. I believe the top 64 cap was at 45 points in Chicago. I might be a digit or 2 off, but I think 45 was the 64th spot. So if you did over that, you topped. If you did that and tied, then it broke down in like your percentage, your win-loss percentages and everything in between. And then you still had the same 45-minute time limit. In the grander scheme of things, I feel like it should be best of 3 all the way through because day 2 went best of 3 with no time limit. And then a single elimination at that point in time. I feel like it always should be best of 3. There were so many games, and I know I'm going to sound a little bit whiny on my side because it's just how the games went. But one thing I loved about it is that the games I lost, I just lost them because I drew poorly. And then the next game I won, or I won the first game and lost the second game, but mostly because I drew poorly. It wasn't because I just outright lost. But going to game 3 and having a definitive winner would have probably made or break my experience. I might have had a higher chance of topping had I been able to go game 3 for most of those and been able to pull out the actual final win. And even if it went to a 3-game lead, they can still keep the point system the exact same, where if you win a round, you get 3 points. If you 2-0 the round, and the person who lost gets 0 points, and then, of course, the winner gets the 7. But then if you go 2-1, then the winner gets the 7 points. And then the loser of the actual match will get the 3 points because they did get a 1-round loss. So that way it would entice players to keep playing the main event to probably eke out those wins to have a higher chance of topping. Most of my games didn't last the 45 minutes. Like I finished most of my games with at least 20 minutes left to spare. So I could have played a 3rd game. There were a couple instances where players drew for time, and I don't know how the heck they did that. I guess they're just overly thinking a lot and just took their time playing. So I think that did happen for 1 or 2 rounds where in a best of 2 rounds, they went to time, which was kind of outrageous and wild. And even in that situation, if you were to do a best of 3 format, if you went to time after 2 rounds, then it's just considered a draw at that point, and both players will get 3 points in that situation. Or based upon how they want to handle tie-breaking rules at that point in time. But I digress. But there was enough time to really do best of 3s for day 1 to allow a lot of players to actually get their definitive win. If that was the case, like I said, I feel personally that I would have had a higher chance of potentially topping, but also it also gives people a chance to earn a lot more points to help try to get their tickets in that situation. But also kind of get past those couple games where you just draw poorly. Or get through some shenanigans with shuffling and a bunch of other things, because losing a game because you just drew horribly, it stinks. And it happens in every TCG, and it's going to happen. Lorcana, the way it plays is a lot different. So I feel like, the odds of that, if you build your deck right, the odds of that happening is not as high as many other TCGs. But being able to sit there and try to get your redemption going 1-1 and then going to game 3, doing a reshuffle and doing it that way, and then potentially drawing your hands and actually having a good game, I feel like that would have probably made or break a lot of the tournament goings. But that's just my personal opinion. That's just something I think that the best of 2 thing just doesn't work. I mean, it works for them, I guess, but in the grander scheme of things of like people playing competitively and trying to top, I felt like it just didn't work because there were so many times where you're just like, okay, well, if I went to game 3, there was a good chance I would have actually won the match. But now I have to deal with the 3. And then if you tie too many times and don't eke out those 2-0s, you're not topping. That was just really the thing. If you don't get enough 2-0 victories, if you didn't get at least 5 2-0 victories, you weren't going to top. And that's kind of intimidating considering the fact that, you know, as a player, you can potentially do game 3, win it, and then get that 7 points to put you at the win. So that way you could have a shot at topping or a shot at going further in the tournament. That's just how I feel about it. I'm pretty positive a lot of other people feel about it the same way. This is their first round of challenges, so I'm not going to really give them so much trouble on this because they're learning as they go. And like I've also said, the fact that they made the modifications for ticketing for Chicago and going forward shows that they're listening and they're getting advice from how the experience are going. Chicago ran a lot smoother than Atlanta did. It had half the players, so a lot of other things didn't take place on that side. But I feel like if they adjust the ticketing, if they adjusted the side events and just went to best of 3s in the main events, it would probably be a lot more enjoyable experience in terms of competitive play and having a lot of players have a real shot at potentially irking out that championship win or even getting to the top level, as opposed to doing the best of 2s where, you know, you draw and you're basically screwed. That's just how I felt about it. And I feel like that's something that they probably should just tweak in the rules and modify that. I don't know if they're going to actually do it or not. I hope that somebody from Ravensburg is watching this. And if they are watching it, please comment or shoot me a message or anything and explain that a little bit better or see some things or some tweaks or changes happening. But one thing I do commend them on is that they are being flexible. They are changing things and they are modifying how everything is working operationally. This is their first real TCG, so they're still learning a lot of things. And so a lot of these events are going to be experiments to see how well they operate, what goes right, what goes wrong, and then work their way from there. But I hope they listen to the rest of the player base and get some of their insight on how they feel on a lot of these changes. But in the meantime, thank you guys for watching this long video. I know it's a lot of ranting and talking, but it's basically to go over my experience. I don't really want to go over a deck profile so much. If you guys want to see a deck profile, I'll do that in the future. We'll probably talk about some Pixelborn later, probably sometime tomorrow, because unfortunately that'll be shutting down really soon, which will be, it's going to hurt the player base because now a lot of decks can't be really easily tested. So that's going to be an interesting time. We'll see what happens. They also might announce a digital client at the Lorcana, so fingers crossed for that. We'll see what happens. I know they're probably definitely going to talk about Set 5 because Set 5 should come out in August. Since it'll sit on the quarterly launch. But if you did like this video and liked me basically going over my experience at the Lorcana Challenge, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a subscribe. If you participated in the challenge and you watch this video and you agree with me or you disagree with me, please leave it in the comments. I'd like to see some dialogue between what you guys think. And of course, for those that are participating in future challenges, if you guys have any questions about some of the processes or procedures, feel free to leave a chat or even follow us on our social media and ask. I am very willing and wanting to help you guys out as much as I possibly can and make sure it's a smooth experience for you guys. But I want to see potentially some dialogue and some things that you'd like to see changed, or what they did right, what they did wrong. There's a lot of stuff that they're doing very, very right, and I do like that, but there are a lot of things that they can make some modifications for and tweak for the near future. So hopefully Ravensburger does hear from all of us players and all the experiences from going on within each event and make some modifications to that as well. The next event is Fort Worth. I'm not going to be participating in that because me and Texas aren't friends, unfortunately, and I just didn't sign up for that one. I will try to participate for the next one in Vegas, which will be in September, which is going to be a pain in the butt because just like this one, a new set will release and then it'll become legal right before Vegas, which means the meta is going to change. And that means I'm going to have to basically modify a new deck or modify my existing deck to work with that meta. So that's going to be a fun time on that side. But Outside of that, give us a like, give us a comment, give us a subscribe. Tell us what you're thinking. Tell us your thoughts. Ravensburger, if you see this video and you're watching, feel free to shoot a message back or tell us some things or make some other changes. I do generally like to keep up to date with a lot of Ravensburger news when it comes to new things with the game. So be on the lookout for those videos as well. So tomorrow, I believe like the Lorcast is either later today or tomorrow. Then they'll talk about set 5. So we'll talk about that probably Friday or so, once I can get all the information for that going together. But in the meantime, I've talked long enough. Thank you guys for watching. This is King Zeph. No Time to Explain. Until next time, I'm out.